Hi, it's Josh Goldberg here. Today I want to welcome back to the channel Frederik Ribersson, who is a life coach and Cosmoenergy healer. Frederik, thanks so much for coming back and chatting with me again.
Thank you for having me back, Josh. Good to be back.
Yeah, we had a wonderful chat last time about Cosmoenergy healing and a few other topics. Today we wanted to go a little bit further with it, maybe open up some new areas of discussion. And first of all, I wanted to just open up the discussion by asking what a Cosmoenergy healing session actually entails. Can you run us through what's involved in a Cosmoenergy session and what, I guess, the process and what someone could expect if they actually undertake this form of healing?
Sure. So there are two ways of working, which is a bit surprising. One way is working in person, which seems much more logical. Even if we're talking about energy healing, which doesn't seem logical for many people, but we can work in person, and that seems understandable. And another way is working remotely by video, which seems very, for many people, very difficult to understand. The first time I tried it, I was a bit skeptical, but then I saw huge results, and I'm pretty much systematically getting very impressive results. So I'll run you through, first of all, the in-person healing, and then I'll explain with the video healing. So in person, we start getting people to breathe deeply. The deeper they breathe, the more effective it is. So usually it takes a few minutes just to get breathing. Quite often people have a lot of noise in their head. So they want to be talking about something, explaining something, explaining why they're late, why they're stressed, and so on. So here it's about just judging, regulating this to make sure that they are in the right frame of mind. Usually it's beneficial to do this because once they calm down, the noise in the head calms down. There's one trick we can do which basically releases the noise in the head. I can also do it remotely, but it's quite effective just to basically just press on the head, releases the noise, people are a bit calmer. Then all they do is breathe. Then what the operator, the healer, does is opens some channels on the person. So we do that by thinking of the channel, usually saying it. So don't say it very loud, so people hear me mumbling, and I'm just basically opening the channels. And then what they do is they breathe and try to let go. This is often tricky to do because there can be a lot of noise in the head. There can be some reluctance, some feeling of, this seems strange, this feels strange. It can feel like we're floating, like we're losing balance. So if somebody's standing, they often start swaying back and forth, and that can be a bit disarming. If we close the eyes, it happens much more easily, so we feel like we're going to fall over, which can be, one thing where the brain goes, this is scary, I have to stop, I have to get back in control. And the whole point is letting go of the control. I've never seen someone fall down yet. And if people sway a lot, I'm always like, I'm ready to catch them in case they do lose their balance. And when that's happening, it's the channels that are basically going through the person. It's a bit like if you're familiar with playing guitar. If you play a string of a guitar, the string vibrates, and it feels like the channels go through the people, and the people start vibrating and getting tuned to it, and that then is releasing a number of things that are trapped. So one way I view it, this is simply my mental image, is like the pipes going through someone, and bits of the pipes are clogged, and depending on the channel, it will unblock some of the pipes, and that starts loosening things up. Sometimes people start crying, and they don't know why. So usually go, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm crying. So we spend time to explain to them, anything that comes out is good. It's stuff that's trapped. So if you feel an emotion coming up, release it. Because if you keep it inside, then you're fighting against the process. If you fight against the process, we could try to force it, but we don't want to fight against you. So if you're fighting against it, maybe you're just not ready, which is okay. But if you try to relax, if you release a bit is more than nothing. So we help you relax, start releasing things. It can be crying, it can be yawning, it can be burping. That happens. So people get it's a bit strange, but we tell them at first, if this happens, it's a great thing. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. We've all been through this. It's a rather weird thing because when we go through this, it's really physical. To be burping, to be crying. We're really in the flesh of what it means to be human. And we're all the same.
Well, the gut, from what I understand, the gut is also a huge place of storage for emotions. So it makes sense for things to be coming out actually through the body's mechanisms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they're coming out, then it's a great thing. Then they're coming out, and it's difficult to get them out. I remember working with one person. A few of us were working with her together. It's the only time I saw this, but she was getting gassy, passing gas, and I was working on the lower back right next to her. So, well, what do? You just breathe through your mouth, and that's it. It's like, it's if I'm the one being worked on, I know how difficult it is to let go. So the whole point is, whoever's being worked on doesn't feel embarrassed, doesn't feel strange, doesn't feel ashamed. So it's about really helping people relax. So we start doing this. We let things flow. Sometimes people want to talk a bit. So we try to let them talk a bit as long as it's not noise that's hiding the emotions. But if they're trying to put fingers on something or they're trying to express something that's difficult, often the way I work is I'll be getting intuitions. So I'll be saying, it seems to me like, and then I get an intuition like, for example, you're carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders. And because the channels are working, if this resonates and is true, we tend to get a much stronger reaction than normal. Normally it would be, yeah, well, that's because I have to whatever. And here it's just more accepting that, yeah, it's a lot of weight on the shoulders. And it's true, it's heavy. And that comes out and gets released. It's rather strange. When you put words on the thing, when it resonates, it's like the person can breathe in, breathe out, sigh, and just release part of it. So that's one part.
Well, this is one thing also that I certainly see when people come to us also is they're always, whether they're dealing with past emotion, like stored emotions, or even if they're dealing with someone that has a lot of stored trauma emotions, they're always very busy in their head, meaning that like it's a constant thing that we see also is that when someone has emotional pain, it almost seems like a defensive way of existing to be over intellectual.
Yeah.
To be thinking about everything, right? Because you don't want to go into your feelings because there's pain there. So everything has to be logic, ideas, facts, busyness. So certainly in your practice, like calming, like getting the person out of their head, like how do you actually get them into their feelings? Meaning like, is that, how long does that take? Because people are very busy in their minds when they have emotional pain. It's like
Yeah, it's huge. A big part of the busyness, the way I see it, is to shield ourselves from the pain that's going on.
Yeah,
it's trying to make sense of it. And if we can make sense of it, we feel safer. If we can't make sense of it, then we feel very vulnerable. And it's probably something that we learn as children to do. So, it's a defense mechanism. So it depends on the people. With some people, it's very quick. It's happened actually with one person that she started releasing everything before I even started working. I told her to breathe and she started crying, and I didn't even need to open any channels. It's a rather disgusting image, but a bit like what is it? Acne that's ready to burst. So you're like popping ready, you just tap and then everything explodes. And if that's the case, it doesn't require very much. With other people, it can require some time to calm things down, to have help them see that it's really complicated. And depends on the people. With some people, it's a few minutes. With some people, it takes more. So it could be a session getting them to wind down. The way I view it is if somebody walks in with this level of tension, as long as we're reducing it, we've made progress. And as long as they feel that whatever progress we made is worth the money and is worth and it's worth continuing, then it's okay. Don't think it's worth the money, it's something else. Instead of going, and sometimes people say, we didn't get rid of everything. It's like, well, that was rather unlikely, but did we make progress? And is the progress valuable? So it can take a while. With some people, it's just about letting go. With some people, it's about talking them into letting go. Then what happens, so we get the people breathing, work with the energy. And then where it gets really interesting, and this can be easier, tell people let go. For me, was much easier to do, was just breathing and relaxing when there's a lot of noise in the head isn't easy, especially when you're trying to block off the emotions. So what we can do is we can work using body-oriented therapy, where we see where the emotions are stored in the body, and we press those points using a specific channel, which sort of is like this strange image. Imagine that you've got the body, you've got the emotion inside, and we basically push in burn it to release it, and then it comes out. So it's really strange. We've got different points like anger stored here in the jaw. Then here's a place where we store things that we don't express. So when we press these points and use this channel to burn them, it becomes mind-blowingly painful. So if you just press normally like this, it's not very pleasant. If we were to do it with energy, it becomes intensely painful. So like different levels of pain. So the interesting thing with pain is when we feel pain, the brain doesn't have very much time to think and rationalize because it's in the mode of, oh my God, this is painful. So it's easier to let go into the pain and let go and release it. So what we get people to do is scream, because the point is that they hold in and they fight the pain. The point is they let go. Release themselves into the pain, and they release the pain that's inside of them. So this can be very intense, very quick. Some of the most intense points are right behind here. Those were the first points that somebody worked with me with. And it lasted probably 20 seconds, can't tell, 10, 20, 30 seconds. And that felt like there was a huge reset. I started crying like I hadn't in decades. And so initially it's the physical pain, then the emotional pain starts coming out. The way I view it is a bit like if you open, again, a tube and you unblock everything that's at the bottom of it that was blocking it, everything that's stored starts coming out. So the physical pain is a way to unblock it, then the emotional pain starts trickling out. So we can work through different points. So these points of anger. There's the heart chakra. The heart chakra, where the heart is closed. That's when we're afraid of being hurt. And that's a really painful point. Also, when my teachers worked with me on that one, they just pressed with one finger. So it was Natalie, one of my teachers, who's in her 60s, just pressed with one finger. She's very powerful. So using this channel, and I was in pain for 10 days. The first days, even if a T-shirt touched it, it was intense.
Wow.
But that was opening the heart, and the heart had been really, really tightly closed, protected. But of course, when you protect it against pain. You protect it against pain, sadness, people hurting it, but you also protect it against love and joy. And I like taking this image of saying it's a bit like a delicate little flower, and you want to protect it against people walking on it and against animals and cars and all of that. So you build a small bunker. So it works. But the thing is that the flower also needs some sunlight and some air and some rain. And so you're letting it die. And maybe it's strong enough to deal with people trying to walk on it now. So maybe the bunker served its purpose. We can let go. We can release the bunker or the armor. We can let go of it with gratitude. And now it's time to trust that everything will be okay. And that's pretty intense. So we work through the body, different points. Some points on the face, some points on the chest, some on the legs, quite a bit on the stomach, a lot of emotions. Then press those points, have the people scream. And the weird thing with the pain is that the pain goes up very quickly. And as soon as we stop, it drops incredibly quickly. So unlike a paper cut, or like if you bump your toe, the pain comes very slowly, but then it's intense and throbs. This goes up quickly and goes down. And with the pain, when you press these points, they go up to a point where it seems unbearable. And if we stick for another few seconds, it's like the pain flips and gets dissolved, and the points stop hurting. So when the points stop hurting, then they're cleaned.
Wow. Fascinating. It almost seems like the physical pain almost mirrors the emotional pain, because emotional releasing is almost I guess identical in a sense that, when emotions come up and they're painful and you contact them, they're very painful, but then when you let go of them, all of a sudden they're gone, right? So it seems to be like a very climactic experience, whether it's this physical pain or this emotional pain, releasing these emotions. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, exactly. The way I understand it is that the emotions, when we feel them, so like you say, we feel the emotion, we can understand it, we can release it, and it's gone. If we don't release it, if we keep it trapped inside, we keep it literally trapped inside, so it goes somewhere in the body. And so it goes to a specific location in the body. And if you find that location, you burn it, you sort of get a flashback of that emotion, and then you can release it. So it happens sometimes for me, work on specific points, I'd be getting specific flashbacks of specific moments when I'd interiorized a strong emotion because I didn't know how to release it. So one of them, I don't remember if I mentioned it, was when it was one of the first points they worked with me on, which was a point in the stomach. And when I had that, I had flashbacks of when my grandmother passed away when I was 11. And that's when my parents wanted to help and said, well, you know, it's very painful. Try not to think about it. So I hid it inside. But then that point in the stomach had been tense ever since. I didn't realize that. And when they released it, I could feel my stomach just relaxing. And it's one of the most mind-blowing feelings when a muscle that was tense for decades, a muscle or an organ that was tense for decades, starts relaxing. So it really is the emotion that's linked to something that we let go of, and it leaves the body. So the two interesting things. One is to think, if I don't let go of this, I've got all of this trapped inside. And the other thing is, if new stuff comes up, I've got the choice of either living the emotion and using it and letting go of it, or storing it inside. And then the two outcomes. One outcome is that I keep it inside and it messes with my life. And the other one is I need someone to work on me and clean it. And that's so bloody painful that it's often easier just to let go of it. So this interesting choice that we get when we realize it makes it easier to find the courage to just go, you know what? If someone's being an idiot with me, I might as well just say so now. Because if I keep it inside, it's going to be really painful. So I'd rather deal with somebody potentially getting upset rather than me having to deal with the fact that I'm not saying something, or I'm upset, or I'm angry, or I'm not expressing myself.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you word it? What would you say to people that do have stored emotional pain inside them, and they do have the fear or I guess the desire to avoid these emotions? What would you say to them to help give them like the courage and the strength to, to let go of these emotions?
I'd say whatever you choose, there's a price to pay. So make sure you're aware of the price you're paying. And we often consider, if you've got the choice between two options, we want the one that has got no downside. But often both of them have a downside, both of them have an upside. So we have to see the price we pay of letting go of these emotions is facing them. And it's not pleasant to do. But the price we really pay if we don't do so is we try to ignore these unpleasant emotions, but then we also ignore joy, which is a pleasant one. We don't get to choose which emotions we ignore, which emotions we block. We either block all of them or we accept all of them. So the price we pay for joy is accepting sadness and anger and fear and just using them and releasing them. So if we want a joyless life, we can do it, but that's not really a life worth living. And, if we're aware of that and we go, okay, it's my choice between a joyless life, because that's really the price we're paying, or finding the courage to face something unpleasant, it suddenly becomes much easier to find the courage to face something unpleasant. And then also realize we're afraid of what we don't know. So we're afraid of what we don't know, and what we're afraid of pretty much never happens exactly how we expect it. And if we go step by step into the things we're afraid of, they become less frightening, and it turns out usually better than what we can imagine. Last time, did I mention the image of the lizard in the house?
No, you didn't do that one last time.
Okay, so I use this image when people are afraid. So I say, imagine that you're in a wooden house in the woods, and there's a big dragon that's roaming around that house, and the dragon's looking for you. And you know that when it finds you, it's going to eat you. And if it doesn't find you, at one point, it's just going to burn down the house, because it can do that. It's a dragon. So you're inside the house, you're terrified. And in the house with you, you have an armor and a shield and a sword. And you're really afraid of going out and fighting the dragon, but if you wait, you're going to get burnt down. So at one point, you're tired of waiting. You're tired of being afraid. You're tired of living in fear. And you think this is no longer a life that's worth living. So if I'm going to die, I might as well die fighting the dragon. It's going to be a hero's death. I'll have tried. At least I have a possibility of surviving. Whereas if I wait inside the house, I have the certainty of being burnt to death. And I have the certainty of living in fear. And that's not a life worth living. So you take your courage and you put on the armor. You take the shield, you take the sword, you put on your helmet, you open the door, ready to die in battle against the dragon. You open the door and you look at the dragon. You see it, and the dragon looks at you, and you realize that the dragon was just a big lizard. And that's it. And this happens so often. We're afraid of something, it turns out it was harmless. But the fear that we're living in is destroying and polluting everything. And as soon as we're ready to face that which we're afraid of, we've pretty much overcome the obstacle. Usually it seems that the courage, the goal is simply to find the courage to face the obstacle and overcome it. And when we find the courage to do that, everything seems to work out.
Wow, so you're saying that the fear that people have to confront these emotions is almost like a blockage in itself, that it's, as soon as they overcome that fear, they realize that it's not even what they were expecting the whole time.
Exactly. It's not what they're expecting the whole time. We're very good at, it's biological. We're very good at projecting a worst case scenario just to make sure that we survive. But then things usually turn out better. I give you an example. One of my clients she had an accident when she was, I think, around 20, and has been having a very difficult life, being very tired for a long time. And she decided she wanted to be a yoga teacher, so she went to get trained and all of that. And she was afraid of how her father would react, because her father has always been discouraging to her. So at one point she decides that she will tell him. So she says, Dad, I decided to be a yoga teacher. And his reaction was exactly as she expected. But you can't do that. You're sick. You're too tired. How are you going to manage? And so she found the courage to say, you know what? I don't know. I'll work it out. And I'll probably find a way. And if I can't find a way, then so what? I'll have tried. And then his reaction was going, oh, well, that's amazing. Well, then I fully support you. I was just concerned that you'd be discouraged and upset and disappointed. But if that's your mindset, then it's great. I'm sure it's going to go fine. And she couldn't believe it. She'd always viewed him as being this monster who cut her down all the time, when he was just being protective of his little girl.
He was just a lizard.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't a dragon. He was just a lizard.
Yeah, he was just doing his best. And in her mind, a huge dragon, just a lizard, just a friendly lizard, trying to say, just be careful with that. Just doing it in a very, not the most sophisticated way, not the most nuanced way. And he was like, well, cool. Like, if that's your mindset, great, go for it, and I hope that it works out for you. And she couldn't believe it. She goes, really? I've been waiting decades to confront him, and this is how it turns out? Like, yeah.
Wow.
Good news.
It's a very good example also how perception and how a person sees something and how the emotion of fear really can distort situations where someone really can be afraid of a lizard, and there's no need to be afraid of a lizard, even if it's big. And just the power of, changing perception and, reframing to see something even just slightly different can make a huge change to how easy life can be.
It does. That's true. And it's so true. And it's so difficult to do ourselves with fear. Fear is one of the very binary emotions we have. Like, if we go back to being cave people, if we imagine what it was like being cave people, if you see some dangerous animal in the distance, you're either not afraid or a little bit afraid or very afraid. And you usually switch from not afraid to very afraid extremely quickly, usually depending on how the rest of the group is reacting. And that's all about survival. So we're not good at dosing the levels of fear, which means that we're not very good at assessing, well, the lizard, is it dangerous? I don't know. Am I afraid? Yes or no? So if I'm afraid it might be dangerous, I'm acting totally irrationally. And if I can understand the danger, then I can actually gauge it. What might it do? It might bite me. Okay, well, if it's not a Komodo dragon, then I think I'm okay. And if it is a Komodo dragon, then I've got a serious problem. So it's actually about understanding the level of danger. But if we don't know it, we're operating blind, so it's really difficult to manage. And if we don't know how to manage it, we tend to go from one extreme to the other. There was this experiment, you might have come across it, where they wanted to see how people reacted to stress. So they took two groups. One group, they said they would, there was a 50% chance to get an electric shock at a certain high stress level. Then they reduced it to a 20% chance, assuming the stress level would go down. Same stress level, 10% chance, the same, 5% the same, 1% the same. And they said, we will give you an electric shock, for sure, the stress level dropped. We're good at dealing with certainty and very bad at dealing with uncertainty. And just the fact that there is uncertainty stresses us out. It's actually one of the most shocking things I learned on a very touchy topic, which is the one of domestic abuse, where we could easily assume that someone who stays in an abusive relationship has got no advantage, and it's totally insane, so we have to pull them out of there, then everything will work out. But if we underestimate the importance of certainty versus the fear of uncertainty, then we're not actually solving the problem. So someone might go, yeah, the situation is horrible, but I know what's happening. If they're afraid of the uncertainty, then they might be looking for certainty again and recreating the same situation. It's not always the case. It's important to think about it, to make sure that we're not solving one problem, but creating another one. And it's also about having empathy with the people that we want to help, is really have a good understanding of their own mechanisms. And if we underestimate the fear of uncertainty, we're not being as effective as we could be.
Absolutely. This is actually one of the things that we see with people with a lot of childhood trauma, because children don't have a great deal of intellectual development to be able to intellectualize things. So they develop like a dichotomous type of thinking where it's like all or nothing, which is also very true with what you're saying about fear. So in terms of someone, say, for example, that has very strong childhood trauma and they're suffering with the traits of, borderline personality, for example, they can also, obviously they're suffering with this fear in the same regard, but they also have the splitting, right? Which is having such a high level of fear and anxiety and, or it could even be shame, whatever the emotion is, it's so powerful that they go from seeing the person in a good light, and now they just automatically switch to the polar opposite, and now they're a horrible person, like the worst person in the world, and there's nothing really in between.
Yep.
So it seems to be like a common kind of theme with stored emotions that are negative, where it's kind of like, it's either to the max or it's kind of like zero, Mm-hmm. Everything's either all good or it's like all bad. I'm either fearful to the point where I have to protect my life to I'm not scared at all. It seems to be that there's not really too much kind of in between. I've never heard someone say, I'm feeling slightly fearful, right? I've never really heard that, because if it's coming from strong trauma or something like that, it seems to be that it's either on or it's like it's off. Is this something that that you see with other emotions as well? Say, for example, like anger and jealousy as well. Like I've never seen a woman be slightly jealous of your ex, right? They're always going crazy. Mm-hmm. Or it's good. Mm-hmm. So is this something that you see with clients that come to you for energy work, that it's kind of like all or nothing with strong trauma emotions?
Yes. The thing is, if the emotion is there, the body's trying to process it somehow. So when someone is angry, it usually isn't because there's a new event every day that makes them angry. There's some underlying issue. And one of the weird things with, anger and fear, for example, is that if it's simmering underneath the surface, it's always on. So that's one of the exhausting and debilitating things when you're afraid, is that you can't have this constant level of fear, so you can never actually really relax. The body never relaxes. And then that starts triggering other behaviors, alcohol use, substance use, gambling, looking for dopamine, using sugar, and so on. It's a way of trying to numb off this situation, because this constant fear is there. When it comes to anger, we know that there are some people who are always really angry or resentful, or they go around, they have a worldview that usually separates into good people and bad people, and they want to fight the bad people, which is not something you do if it's not where you see the world if you're in a happy place. So it's easy then to rationalize and say, well, the reason why I'm angry is because the world is like this. But then I'd suggest it's possible to view things differently and say, maybe the reason you view the world this way is because you're angry. So what are you angry about? And it seems that every time we dig below the surface, we realize there's some underlying situation that makes people angry or fearful, and then simply the worldview is how they rationalize it. And it's, it's at first quite scary for them, because there's a big part of self-identification in this worldview, regardless of the ideology. So I'm not going to go into any details. There are numerous examples, but I'll let everyone see to what extent it's relevant to them. So they have a self-identification by going, this is who I am, this is how I see things, and they put a label based on their worldview. And it's because of this that I'm angry. But then you could also say, well, you're just angry or fearful, and therefore you look for an ideology that explains why you're feeling angry and fearful, then you rationalize it, and then that probably makes you even more angry and fearful. And then it's what is self-fulfilling prophecy? It's just a circle, and then you'll cherry pick data that supports your worldview, but you're not actually addressing the underlying issue. And it's something I've seen with quite a few people who were heavily involved in being militants for whatever cause. We'd work on the underlying issue, and at one point they'd find it easy just to go, you know what, I feel better, I can work effectively, I can still do things for this cause, but my main motivation isn't trying to hide an emotion I have inside of me. So I can do it whilst being peaceful and being happy and not putting too much burden on my own shoulders, because my underlying issues are resolved. And that's more effective, and these people are happier. And of course, the irony is that when they're happier, they tend to be more effective in doing things, so getting greater results, which is good for the greater good.
Absolutely.
But yeah, as you say, it's often underlying emotions that are simmering, that are constantly there to some extent, and they can flare up very quickly and then go back down. They never seem to go away. So you can imagine if somebody is never not fearful or never not angry, it's debilitating. It's really sad. It's really sad that they're suffering that much.
Yeah. And it does, as you said, like I like to think of it like when you go to the cinema and, there's like the projection light, I guess. It's just projecting a picture. Whatever screen, whatever film is in front of the light at any given moment is what's actually displaying on the screen. So these people that are carrying around stored anger or stored fear, stored shame, stored guilt, stored anxiety, whatever they're holding on to, they're constantly projecting this kind of picture, because the film is only kind of projecting. The light is indiscriminate, right? It's actually what the film is showing in front of the light is what the picture is going to be on the screen. So I totally get what you're saying. People that do have these unresolved emotions, they always have a picture of whatever it is that they have on the inside, because whatever's on the inside, right, a person's inner world is being projected to the outside, to the outer world. And that's actually how they're seeing the world, is through this film. So they'll always find what they have on the inside. It doesn't matter what everyone else sees. And I like to use the example of, someone walks into the room and there's two people standing there, and one person says, oh, there's so-and-so, he's a really nice fellow. The other person says, oh, so-and-so, he's a bad person. It's like, wait a minute. One person walked through the door and all of a sudden there's two people. How could there be two different people, right? Only one person walked through the door. He's either good or bad. Which one is he? And the answer is, well, to this person, he's good, and to that person, he's bad.
Exactly.
Because how the person's feeling on the inside, how the relationship with themselves and what emotions that they're storing actually, I guess, affects like how they view their movie, how they view their world. And it can't possibly be that this person is two different people. He's only one person. So the answer is, to both people, he's who they say they are, because it depends on the film, on the observer, right? So
exactly,
it reigns true what you're saying, that if they heal and let go of these emotions on the inside and let go of these, emotions that are not serving them well, they're going to see the world. The world's going to change for them, right? Because if you're playing the wrong movie in front of a projector, mm-hmm. You take out the film, you put in a new film, and all of a sudden the picture's right now. It's the right picture.
That's a really good way of putting it. I like that. You must have seen these pictures where one of them was, it's like the two pictures in one. One of them, you can either see a beautiful woman with a fox scarf and a hat. Or if you view things differently, you see an old witch and you go between the two.
Yeah.
Might have seen those ones.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's the same thing. It's the same picture. It depends how you want to view it. And both are true. Then, which one do you choose to see? There's one example, actually, I saw the other day on Twitter, was a woman who signed up to a dating website. And she said that within, it's really interesting just to see, within a few, I think, hours or days, I can't tell, she had something like 82 matches or likes. And she said of those 82, one sent her an obnoxious photo and another one made an obnoxious comment. And so her takeaway was, men are awful. And my takeaway was going, well, that's 2 out of 82. So 80 of them probably aren't decent people. But more than none could be decent. And she's focusing on the 2 who clearly just are obnoxious people. What about the other 80? I mean, it might turn out that... Oops, sorry, I just froze. I think that my camera's doing something. Anyway, I'm still here. You can hear me, I think.
I can certainly hear you.
Okay, so the camera's going to come back in a second. So yeah, she chose to... Here we go. She chose to focus on the 2 instead of the 80, and that's a choice. Of course, the narrative of saying 80 of them are great people isn't true either. But the choice to focus on the 2 says a lot about the mindset. So, and of a sample of 82 guys, I'd be expecting far more than, 2 of them to be obnoxious people.
Yeah.
Not 100%.
But not 80, not 82.
Not 82, exactly. Somewhat less than 82. More than none, less than 82. Where exactly, I don't know. But certainly I'd expecting more than 2 of them to be obnoxious. That's simply based on my observations. So yeah, it's about how we frame things. And it's
Absolutely.
really difficult, like you were saying, it's really difficult to step out of how we frame things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, my wife, she, as you know, overcoming borderline personality disorder, in that field, it's actually called the Bpd Lens, meaning that the borderline person, it's the way that they view the world. And it corresponds with what you're saying about perception and the film example that we were talking about before. And as hard as it is to change, when it is changed, the whole picture changes. And, I've seen in a lot of relationships with people that do have, unresolved past trauma and, toxic emotions that they're holding on to. The person, when they heal these emotions, their spouse will often say, wow, like, I haven't done anything. I'm still the same guy as before with stinky socks, right? I haven't changed my habits. I haven't miraculously become better looking. I'm not Brad Pitt. And, now my partner, she sees me as a totally different person. Before she thought I was the abuser. Now she sees me as, well, who I am, a guy trying to be in a like a vulnerable, healthy relationship. And I haven't done any drastic changes. I'm still the same stinky guy as before. And because she has healed her BPD lens, or she's healed her trauma lens or her negative perception, the whole picture changes. And, it's interesting also when people are a part of that picture and they realize that, wow, I really haven't changed. This person's changed their perspective and they've healed their trauma lens and their emotions. And, I have to get used to them actually seeing me as a different person now. It's like as hard as it is, it's quite a drastic change in a person's life.
It's huge. And you're very right. It's, if we have this trapped emotion that we're trying to project, we'll find a way to project it no matter what. There'll always be a reason to complain somewhere. And if we choose to offer charitable explanations, we'll always find a way to do that and assume, maybe the person's having a bad day. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And the balance, I think, really is going, I see the charitable explanation, and does the behavior suit me? And if it does, then it's great. If it doesn't, despite the charitable explanation, the behavior doesn't suit me. So what do I do about it? I saw like a huge change in mindset with some people who would be complaining that they wouldn't be, let's say, sharing the tasks at home equally with their partner, regardless if it's a man or a woman. And so they'd be resentful about, I'm always doing this, the other person's never doing that. And when we change the mindset to, I got this from the book, The 5 Languages of Love, we'd say the 5 ways to show your love, and one of them is acts of service. So if you say that you want your home to be clean and nice and welcoming, and everything you do inside there's an act of service for the other one, a way of showing them that you love them, then all of a sudden, taking out the bins isn't a punishment. It's a way of showing the other person that you love them, and doing the laundry and cooking and cleaning. It's no longer a chore. It's just a way of showing the other person that you love them because you want to be in a nice space with them. And that's usually a big game changer when there's tension, to just go, instead of viewing it as being something that's forced upon you, view it as being a way of showing the other person you love them. And it's really, actually, I have another story for you in terms of how things flip. I was with some friends and they were having this IKEA kitchen glove that was magnetic, so it would stick underneath the pots. And so they started saying, can you believe this is so stupid? Look at it. You put a pot on it and it sticks, and you have to peel it off. This is so stupid. How could they not think of it? Well, I tell them, I think they did it on purpose, so you can put the pot on and move it around. And they go, this is so clever. Can you imagine how clever they were to think about this? And as soon as they had a more charitable explanation instead of stupidity, that it was done on purpose, they go, this is brilliant. These guys are geniuses. And the flip took half a second.
Yeah, quick change in perception, and all of a sudden it's magnificent.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, this is the lens. This is the lens that we see things through. And, it, as you said, it might be hard to change the lens when someone has strong emotions that they're storing, but the results afterwards are quite significant. It changes a person's whole life.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting to see when we release the emotions, but the mindset doesn't change. Then people sort of, it's like there's cognitive dissonance. They go, well, I know I think this way, but I no longer feel it. So what's happening? So that's why it's interesting work on both sides, and why both sides are really important, changing the emotions and changing the lens. So you can change the lens. If people still have the emotion, that's still going to be something for them to work through, but changing the lens makes it easier to work through it. And when you can change the emotion, then at one point the lens can adapt. The time in between can be really strange, but we've seen it with people who release emotions and realize that their regular behaviors are no longer necessary. They don't want to go shopping. They don't want social media. They don't want alcohol. They don't want sugar. They don't want cake. They don't want dopamine. They basically sit around and go, what do I do now with my life? Because I no longer have the urge to run away. And it's interesting to
it's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it is. It's liberating.
Yeah, I remember actually with my wife when she was going through this process, that was something that was a little bit strange for me at first, but she would say, like, I feel very weird right now. It's almost like a confusion, like, what am I meant to do? Exactly. And who am I? Like my brain, and I said to her, I said, maybe your brain and your feelings are suddenly not familiar with each other. Like, because you're used to having these emotions for so long, and now your thoughts and your emotions don't match, and that's going to be a very strange feeling, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And now that the feelings are gone and the trauma is gone, there's no need to survive and to fight or to flight or to fawn or to freeze anymore. Now you can change your thinking. And I think this touches back into what we were saying last time, that DBT skills, CBT skills, even just basic communication skills, when the emotions are released, now all of a sudden you can repattern the brain in a way that it's actually going to be long lasting, and you're not going to be fighting the elephant. Like you said last time, you're not going to be trying to tell the elephant to be, to be logical or to be mindful.
Exactly.
So it's releasing these emotions allows the brain to relax and to almost kind of to reform healthier paths of thinking.
Yeah, that's true. And
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, if you think with the elephant and rider situation, you imagine an angry elephant, you can tell the elephant to calm down. It's probably not going to work.
No.
You can also imagine once the elephant is peaceful and is just, standing there thinking that life is beautiful, watching a sunset, the rider can be really annoyed about stuff. The elephant will just look at him or her and just shrug it off and go, whatever, look at the sunset, it's nice. Yeah, but what about injustice? Yeah, well, there's a sunset right now.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy the sunset.
Eat a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. And injustice can wait. You know, we'll get around to that. Right now, there's a sunset. It's not going to last. So enjoy this, and then we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
And instead of being upset and ruining your sunset, enjoy the sunset, and then see what we can do.
Yeah, and they probably feel at that moment that they don't even deserve to enjoy. That's another thing. They're so, because the emotions are gone now, but they still think that I don't deserve this. And with a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of I guess awakening in their minds, they can realize that, wow, maybe I can just enjoy the sunset.
Yeah, that's true. You touched upon an interesting point there, where if someone's grown up always being told that they're not allowed to enjoy, that they don't deserve it, or they have to do something to deserve it, it can be really, really tricky to just go, you know what, I don't need someone's permission. If I want to, I can do it. And then for people, it can be complicated to think, but I've lived with this for so many years. It can't possibly be unfair, because then it would be tragic. And this is also where the lens is really important. I mean, that it's absolutely true to say that. It's unfair and it's disgusting. And why didn't people tell us all of this when we were children? But then with the other lens, it's saying, well, people didn't know it. The level of information we have now is mind-blowing in 2020 compared to what was, what even specialists knew 30 years ago. Like it's day and night. So we're fortunate to be living now, not living in the 18th century, where it'd be incredibly different. We're fortunate to be living now, and we're fortunate to learn what we're learning now rather than in 40 years' time, because that's also the alternative. So instead of going from the resentment, we go to the gratitude. And that's a huge changer, which also helps when we release the anger. So the different layers of releasing the anger. If we have the anger, it's easy to be resentful. If we're able to release the anger and rewire things, and we let go of the resentment, and that's a huge step of just replacing it with gratitude. And it's a choice. It's either resentment or gratitude. And I think, honestly, between the two, the resentment and gratitude, the way I view it is, you can be resentful if you have a very high baseline and say, someone else has it better than me. I have it less well, so I'm resentful about this. But you can also say, other people have it far less well than I do. I've got something better than them, so I'm grateful for that. And for the others, good for them. Those who got more than me, good for them. Everyone has got their own path. My path is mine. I'm grateful for my path. I'll do what I can to help other people along theirs, reasonably. And I'm grateful for what I have rather than resentful for what I don't have. And that's a huge, huge change in mindset. It was helpful, actually, for me when I was in Kibera in Kenya. It's Africa's largest slum. So you see people living off $120 a day. $120 a month. And they live in a place, so some kind of shanty town, share a room with multiple people, no running water, shared public toilets, terrible sanitation. And some of them are positive and grateful and just great people, and go, well, I don't know how they manage. I wouldn't be able to manage. So I have a lot of respect for them. And I'm just grateful that I'm not in their shoes. And then you see the uber rich who've got dysfunctional families, who've got substance abuse problems and so on, and go, I'm grateful I'm not them. I don't know if I do any better. I might just be doing much worse. It might just be destroying me. So I'm just grateful for what I have, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I actually see it as like a form of self-care, to be honest, to not look at other people and to be constantly looking at what a person doesn't have. And I use the example of like someone who's crossing the street and someone's coming towards them and they're running a red light, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not a very good idea. It's not very good self-care to start shouting at the person now that they're running a red light, right? Because even though the person is right, the right thing to do in self-care is just to get out of the way and to not worry about the fact that they're doing this or this. It's not the time to start a discussion on, well, hey, you just ran through a red light because he's hurtling towards you. Because the person crossing the street is right. Yes, that person did run a red light in their car, but self-care at the moment says that you need to get out of the way of the car. So if, in life, there are always people that you could see have it better, and that they did have an easier life, and they didn't have childhood trauma, whereas I had childhood trauma. But that's poor self-care. A good self-care is actually thinking in a way that promotes like a healthy self-image and self-esteem and positive feelings, positive outlook. And a person really can, achieve this if they, incorporate this as part of their self-care, looking after themselves. Like, is it good for myself to think this way, to always look at what other people have and to think, oh, if only I had that. How did he get that? That's not fair. And, this person doesn't have trauma. Why do I have to have the trauma? And the question is that good self-care?
Yes, I think that's a very, very valid question. Is it good self-care? What is the outcome? The outcome of comparing comparing to other people is that we end up being resentful and feeling the world is unfair.
Yeah.
Whereas that's one view. It's sort of the horizontal view. If I compare myself to other people now, like I can compare myself to Roger Federer and be resentful that I'm not him. Then
you look like him a little bit.
I think that's where the similarities end pretty much. I could do that, but then what's the outcome? I just be resentful and upset and complain and feel like a victim, which then might be my goal. And in reality, he's had his life and I'm really pleased for him, and he's worked really hard and he had his own challenges to go through. And I don't know if I'd have done any better, probably not. And I've had my own challenges, which led me to where I am today. So if somebody wants to watch a good tennis match, they should go and watch him. But if they want Cosmoenergy healing, then, he's not the right person to go to. So all is well. We're all on a path. We're all moving. And as long as we're moving forward, whatever challenges we have, they are our challenges to work through. And as long as we work through them, we're doing what we should do. So all is good. And I find it, as you talk about self-care, if we view things that way, any unpleasantness that comes our way is just a challenge to work through. So if we work through it, our life improves. If we don't, our life gets worse. And comparing ourselves to others is a good excuse to not work through things, because we can say, it's unfair, therefore why should I do the hard work? It's like, well, we can think whichever way we like. If we don't do the hard work, the challenge doesn't go away. It just gets worse. It just gets bigger and bigger until we face it. So the sooner we face it, the easier our life is.
Yeah. I actually read in a Jewish book once, it was funny. They said that like looking at like being jealous of other people, of what they have, is like drinking the poison and expecting them to get sick. You like that one?
That's fantastic. I love that.
So it's like, you can get as upset as you want. You can get upset to the point where your stomach is in a knot and you can't even eat, and that person still has a Ferrari and you don't.
Exactly.
That person is still a handsome tennis player and we're not, right? So it's like, you're right. It comes back to self-care and what the outcome is. Like, what are you getting from that approach? And I just love that example of like drinking the poison and expecting them to get sick.
Yeah. And
they're not going to get sick.
No, exactly. They're not going to get sick. And the crazy thing is that, maybe one day those people come to you and ask for your help, and they're really grateful, and they're amazing people and kind and generous, and they're going through challenges that we can't begin to fathom. We select. We also have the lens of seeing what we see of other people. We select what we want to see. Like I know someone who was, she started nannying in a family in the US. They have a multi-million-dollar house. So on paper, unbelievably successful. But in effect, I don't remember how many children they have, but most of the children are obese. They've got diet problems. The parents are absent. They're neglecting the children. The children are badly behaved. It's a fully dysfunctional family. So, we can say, well, they're rich. Like, okay, are they happy? Don't seem to be. Are they healthy? They don't seem to be. Would I really want to be one of those kids? Absolutely not. No way. No way. It's their challenge. They'll get all the support and sympathy. It's their challenge, and I hope, I wish them well. I hope it goes okay. And
you're right. It's not healthy to judge other person's situation until you're actually standing in their shoes, and we never stand in someone else's shoes, so we can never know what people are going through.
That's true. And I remember you might remember this Depeche Mode song, "Walking in My Shoes." Try walking in my shoes. You'll stumble in my footsteps. So keep the same appointments I kept. It's easy to assume that we do things differently. We've got no idea, and thankfully, we're never going to find out.
Yeah. So let's talk about now. So people are not going to go to Roger Federer for Cosmoenergy. People are going to come to you. People are going to come to you for a session. Mm-hmm. So where does a person need to be in their journey or in their life in order for Cosmo energy healing, whether it's a physical session or a session remotely using the Zoom, where do they need to be in terms of it being effective? Like, can a person turn up and not achieve anything? Like, do they need, like, what does a person need to have already done, or what do they need to, what's the credentials that a person needs to have in order for Cosmo energy to be effective for them in healing?
Okay, I think the most important thing is that they need to want to change. They need to want an improvement. It's possible to work against someone's will. That's possible. It's possible that, and is it probable if we do it, that we're stronger, but we don't want to have a situation where we're fighting against them and there's some kind of conflict. It can happen when someone says they want to change, but they're not willing to let go. Then things start moving anyway, and it's uncomfortable. They're not willing to release the things they have inside. So this is up to us to sort of dose that. Generally, as long as people are willing to change, to do something, to let go, to trust again, to release the pain, to release what's stored, then it's pretty effective. The main thing is that they shouldn't have any alcohol in their system, because that nullifies the work that we do. We shouldn't have any alcohol in our system, and most of us just have stopped drinking altogether, just to be effective. And that's really it. Some people have been on decades-long journeys, and things went really quickly, and sometimes it went slowly, and other people have done virtually nothing, and things went really quickly. And with other people, it goes slowly. So it really depends how willing they are to release the burden that they have. And that's pretty much it. The channels do the work. All we're doing, we're operating the channels and we're guiding people a bit. The channels are doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you say in a session, like, to what degree is the person, the client, doing the work as opposed to the practitioner, which is you in this case? Like, is there a ratio for someone that's not as willing? Does the practitioner have to work harder, or is it the results commensurate to how much the client puts in? Like, how much is the client doing? Is it 90-10, 50-50, 60-40, or is it 100% the client and you're just guiding them? How would you describe the process for the client?
It's difficult to put a number on it. I'd say the client, what they focus on is relaxing, letting go. And the more they do that, the more effective our work is. We can help them let go more, like all of the pressing parts as part of that. It's more effective. And actually, if we do it remotely, then I just get people to press, and then I work through them, and that's also quite effective. So the deeper they breathe and the more they let go, the more effective it is. The more they stop being afraid, they just let go. So if they're getting their head spinning a bit, they just let the head spin, and they trust it's going to be okay. Then it can be incredibly effective. And they've got the power to block it. So if they block it, then we're sort of doing more work, or they're slowing down the work. It's a bit like you try to pull someone and they put their feet on the ground to prevent you from moving forward. We can force it, but past a certain point, it's just not productive. So then typically I'll switch to more talking, understanding what they're afraid of, trying to put words onto things. So I'll be ping-ponging between the two as is relevant for people. Sometimes it's just, having them verbalize the advantages they have of their current situation. And if they're able to verbalize it, then sometimes once it's verbalized, it's easy to say, okay, now I see why my elephant is acting this way. And now I understand how to talk to my elephant, tell my elephant to calm down and just let go. So yeah, that's it in short.
Wow, amazing. I was wondering if we might be able to finish off with maybe telling us like a scenario that you had, like some like a healing story that you have that was quite quite astounding or quite profound with Cosmo energy. Love to hear a story.
Yeah, so I had the two that come to mind. One is a woman who'd been diagnosed with cancer, and she was, of course, incredibly fearful. She's in her 60s, really tense, and you could see all of the emotions bubbling, and she didn't know how to deal with it. So we did this session. Basically got her to. So we started out. She said her stress level was at 8 out of 10. And we got her to breathe deeply, put words onto things. I verbalized a few things, that she was really hard on herself, that she was really afraid, and she started crying a lot, that it seemed like she'd been hard on herself for a long time. And she started saying, yeah, because when I was growing up, I always had to do this and take care of these people. And, you know, she had anger against her parents because her mother expected stuff from her. So just verbalized it and said, you know, that sounds like it was really tough for you and really hard. And you were so young and so small, and you were asked to carry such a heavy load. So we did a few things about her releasing the load, letting go of it. And then we got into saying, well, you know, when you think of your parents, of your mother, do you think she did this to hurt you? And she said, of course she didn't. You know, it was just ignorance. You know, so there was more breathing, and there was some forgiveness there of just saying, well, it was ignorance. Yes, it did hurt. For sure it did. And I can see that it was ignorance. It wasn't she was mean-spirited. She was just ignorant, and she didn't take me into account. And that was really tough for me. It was really hard. So it's trying to phrase the picture in a very, very honest way, sort of steel manning it. And so we kept on working, and she was crying a lot when we were doing this. I got her to scream a few times when emotions were bubbling up. So sometimes it happens, the emotion bubbles up, tell people cover their mouth and scream. And she let a few screams out. Then at the end of the session, she said that her stress level was at 2 out of 10, down from 8. She was sleeping well again. Things were improving. So there was a lot that was coming out just in one session.
That's a big difference.
It's huge, yeah. Like, to me, if we go from 8 to 6, it's really improvement. Like, if you're at 8, it's, you know, anything that reduces it. And then she said, yeah, it was down to 2. We just had one session. She was less afraid. We spoke about the chemo. We spoke about the illness. And, of course, she was thinking, you know, I'd like the assurance everything will be fine. I was like, well, you can't have that. But you don't have the assurance that nothing will be okay. You have a possibility. You know, what can you do to make things better? You have to trust the process. You eat junk food, you smoke, you drink. If you accept that this is going to impede the process, then you accept it. I understand you do it because you're afraid. But if you stop being afraid, it's easy to make the decisions. And so she changed her habits afterwards. She was feeling more courageous, more energy. She wasn't running away from something. And it was really nice to see. It was really, really moving. Then to get the feedback afterwards that, you know, there was a before and after.
Yeah.
That was really heartwarming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a person that, you know, I mean, none of us really know how long we're going to be here for, but this is an example of how, you know, energy release kind of healing practices like Cosmoenergy and this type of healing can get powerful results quite fast.
Yes. And I mean, with Cosmoenergy healing, we can work on other ailments, other more physical ailments. The way I view it is, until I can prove some level of causality, I'd rather say, let's just work on you feeling less stressed and releasing emotions, and anything else is, you know, anything else is a nice to have. It's like the other day I started feeling a cold sore coming. I used some essential oils. I did a Cosmoenergy treatment, and the thing went away. Now, was I mistaken? Maybe. Was it the Cosmoenergy? I don't know. Was it the essential oils? I don't know. Was it? I don't know what it was. I didn't get one, so no, I wouldn't sell it to people if I'm going to rid you of your cold sore, because I can't prove that. but if I'll sell, you know, like I'll help you be less stressed and feel more powerful, then that's something we can measure that's tangible, because people can measure the stress levels between 0 and 10. And it means I'm not over-promising anything.
Yeah.
So
deal with the stress, release the stress, and maybe the stomach also will improve. It's a byproduct of the emotions. Just treating the core emotions of stress, anger, frustration, fear. Mm-hmm. You know, it's very powerful. Maybe it'll have a positive effect on the body also.
Exactly. That's it's sort of what I observe. So I view it as being, you know, a positive benefit, byproduct of something else. Usually it works out, but I'm always reluctant to oversell something or to be misleading. I really don't want that. So the way I see it is, the emotions are there. If we can release them, you'll feel better, you'll sleep better, things will improve somehow. I've systematically seen that it makes a tangible difference for people when they're willing to release the emotions.
Wow, amazing. Well, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing the information, and also that story is quite powerful that she had such a huge change in such a little period of time. I'm guessing a session lasts anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. Am I right in saying that? A Cosmoenergy session?
Yeah, usually around 1 hour, 90 minutes. Sometimes we go further. If there's a lot of stuff coming out, then I don't interrupt it. The
Yeah.
process of getting stuff out is not always easy, so we'll just do what it takes. But yeah, usually 60, 90, 120 minutes. Whether that's if we do multiple sessions, it's easy to keep it down to 60 minutes, and then we can go more thematically, go on to one thing or another. So we could do much longer work with people. It just gets exhausting. So often after 60 minutes, when people have been crying, when they've been releasing things, that's really quite a bit.
Yeah, it's very taxing on the body and the energy. It's very depleting.
Yes, it is. We don't realize how much energy is spent keeping emotions inside, and how much energy we spend releasing them, and then we don't realize how good we feel once they're released and how peaceful we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, Frederik. I'm looking forward to having future discussions. I know we have more things to talk about. I'm going to put Frederik's Twitter details and other details in the description of this video. Thanks so much for joining me again, Frederik. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again next time.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for having me again. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Be well.
You too. Bye.
Bye.